Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show and welcome into your Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Evan Kamiko. Kevin, the dog days of summer finally coming to a close. Students coming back on campus. We got news down in Little Rock. Isaiah Joe hosting a camp. DJ Wagner also hosting camp out in Jersey. We'll talk all that stuff later, but we got to get into it. We got some recruiting news. It's been a busy week for you on the trail of some Hog recruits coming in, some offers, maybe some intel that you can give us. Where do you want to start? Where are we going with this?
Let's go class of 2028. It's the Calipari claims it's the youngest, earliest he's ever made an offer. And it was an in-state kid, so it's the third in-state player he's offered. We know what his track record is on the first two. Isaiah Seeley, Hog, J.J. Andrews, Hog, got to have a senior year of high school, but he's signing in November. Will be a freshman in the season after next. But Anthony Spratt Jr., a 6'6" wing and a Benton, helped the Panthers win the school's first ever 5A state title back in March. Calipari started watching him in person back in June. We reported that in a Scholastic event in Kansas City. Arkansas coaches courtside to see him during Nike E15 Peach Jam was the last event they saw back in late July. But a scholarship offer last week, this past week, I reported that. Got the call that the offer was made. I immediately got that on social media. But Spratt's excited. I interviewed him yesterday in person. You mentioned the Isaiah Joe camp. We'll talk more about that later. But he talked about it, how Calipari told him that's the youngest he's ever offered him. And this young man, again, as a true freshman, a ninth grader, helped Benton win a state title. And now he'll be a sophomore with school starting back up a 10th grader. So I don't know historically if Calipari's actually offered anybody earlier or around the same time. But it's not. If it ever did happen, that one got by me because he's right. I don't know that. I think it might be unprecedented. And now you've got a third in-state kid with an Arkansas offer. Really good player, good 3-point shooter, 36% this past session with EYBL with Brad Bill Elite, 15 and under, and can get to the rim, finish above the rim. Very athletic, and then also his mid-range game is really good for his age. I mean, he's got real craft, not just pull up or catch and shoot, but he's got dribble drive craft to get to spots. I really like the player. Obviously, Calipari does. He's got an offer. Another piece of news here, Jacob, from the week that I reported, Scott Clower, a 6'7", pushing 6'8" wing out of North Carolina. Arkansas offered him late. As many players as Calipari is prioritizing the 2026 class, this is one of about 2 or 3 that had gotten in on late. But not only did Arkansas offer him in late July coming out of Nike Peach Jam, but I reported early in the week, his dad reached out to me and said the Arkansas visit, they've scheduled an official visit October 3rd through the 5th. That's among 7 visits they've got lined up. So, you're looking at schools like Kentucky, both North Carolina schools. North Carolina State. We're not mentioning Duke here. So the both is North Carolina State, Florida, Alabama. I mentioned Kentucky. UConn's going to get a visit, but that Arkansas date, again, October 3rd to the 5th, 6'7" sharpshooter. You talk about a sniper. Down in the 17U, which is the highest level of EYBL, 35% on nearly 7 attempts per game from 3. Calipari was courtside to watch him multiple times in July during live eval sessions, and he always went off when Calipari was watching. He had a 5 of 10 game from 3 and another that was 4 of 8, but a really good shooter, and Arkansas is trying to get him in. Arkansas's got other visits set up, by the way. Arafan Diane is class of 2026. Arafan Diane, 7'1", 280 pounds out of IU United Prep. Right now, as it stands, September 12th to the 14th, that's his official visit date to Arkansas. Jordan Smith Jr., a 6'2" guard out of Virginia, also class of 2026. I have him rated the number 2 player in the country. Most services have him ranked 2nd or 3rd behind Tyron Stokes at number 1. He's scheduled to come in to visit Arkansas September 20th to the 21st. And then another 5-star guard, top 15. I've got him ranked 12th, also class of 2026. Tate Kenny out of the state of Kentucky, plays at overtime elite. All of that is in Calipari's recruiting wheelhouse. Been recruiting him for a long time, back when Calipari was coach at Kentucky. This is a Kentucky kid, but he's got an official visit set to Arkansas for September 26th to the 28th. Of all those visit dates I just announced, only one of those, Tate Kenny, the last one I just told you, it's the only one where the football Hogs will be hosting a game that weekend. That'll be the weekend that Arkansas is hosting Notre Dame. That'll be big. Everybody else is coming in. They're going to get to see basketball practice. They're going to see the great University of Arkansas campus in Fayetteville. They're not going to get to see that fan atmosphere for a game. It's too soon for basketball season, right? It's now fall, it's
Mhm.
football, but
Yeah.
a lot of these visits are taking place when Arkansas is either on the road to play football or they're got a bye week.
Yeah, because you've got that Memphis week, right? Arkansas hosts, and
Yeah.
then they go to Memphis, and then it's Ole Miss for the SEC opener, and then Notre Dame, that big game at the end of September. And it's really interesting, I think, too, with Spratt. And you got a chance to talk to him earlier this week, and you posted that on your X. And it was really interesting to see how he carried himself because he doesn't feel like, he's a young guy, yeah, class of 2028, which shocked me when I first read that because I'm like, oh my God, it's 2025. We're talking about class of 2028. But the way he carries himself, it's really encouraging. And somebody that, again, we saw Malik Thomas a couple of months ago, or really, what is that, a month ago now? I'm losing track of time here, Kevin. And we saw Malik Thomas, and it's rare to see young kids be able to go up and have the presence that they do. And it was really interesting to hear, Spratt just talk about the camp and where he was.
Now you got your time frame right. That was July 9th. That wasn't that long ago. It was just barely a month ago. So you were right on it. But look, this is a deal where you're seeing more and more of younger players getting more exposure. They're getting around, getting to travel. CP3 Rising Stars Camp. That's where Anthony Spratt Jr. is headed next. That's a big platform. There'll be NBA scouts
Mhm.
there. But the more opportunities they get on these big stages, the more they're around older players, the more they're getting contacted by college coaches and then getting offers. They're having these conversations. And so, just like anything else, you get better on the court, you get better in how respond, how you speak about things, you mature, you start to learn. And certainly I don't want to take anything away from Anthony Spratt Jr. because you're right, he's very mature and pretty level-headed about everything. But you see more and more how young players are becoming, they sound beyond their years when you hear them speak because they're being put on these big stage situations, really young in life. Where back in the day, I'm old. Back in the day, we didn't know
Kevin,
how
you're
to
not that
talk
old.
to. We didn't know how to talk to an adult until we were 18 or 19, and some of us couldn't even do that. Now you got these guys being interviewed when they're really young. And then, here's another thing I'll say about some of these in-state kids. I saw a kid, and we're going to talk about the camp here in a little bit.
Mhm.
But one of the players I saw yesterday is an eighth grader, 13 years old, Justin Peppers out of Whitehall. He's already 6'5". He's already athletic. He looks as big as all the kids that are going into senior high school. Got the body of some college freshman, and he's got a nice skill set. I mean, he finishes well above the rim. He's very athletic. I mentioned that, but he's got a nice little skill set already for a 13-year-old going in eighth grade. He can't even play up on the high school team yet. That'll
Yeah,
be in another year when he's a ninth grader. And I didn't
crazy.
put the mic in front of him. I'm gonna let him marinate a little bit, get a little older before we start putting him on the spot with questions. We got more to talk about with Isaiah Joe, but I just thought I'd throw that in there since we
Yeah.
talked about Calipari and that early offer. I put out highlights of Justin Peppers earlier today. I think his mom played basketball at the University of Arkansas back in the day. I put highlights out on him. I'm serving notice. Calipari, whoever it is, you need to already get eyes on this guy. I mean, you need to start paying attention to some of these young guys in Arkansas. Maybe he'll set the next precedent. By the way, just real quick, Anthony Spratt
Yeah.
Jr. Courtside for him at the end of Nike Peach Jam. John Shire, the head coach at Duke,
Mm.
Bruce Pearl, the head coach at Auburn. A lot of programs interested in him right now, Jacob.
I think when you have Duke and Auburn and those kind of schools, obviously Arkansas right there with them, looking at a guy, again, these guys are so good. And especially if you're at those certain circuits, you're going to get all these big name head coaches. But we're going to take a quick break, Kevin. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that Isaiah Joe camp, TJ Wagner, and the guys coming back from school. Stick around. The Hog Hoops Report returns right after this. Welcome back into the Hog Hoops Report. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Evan Kamiko. Kevin, and it's an exciting time on the Hill. Students finally starting to come back to campus. I was a little upset, I've got to say, because it made my drive the other day really hard. I couldn't find parking anywhere when I was trying to park at the office lot. Everything was full. So it's an exciting time. Students are coming back. Fayetteville's starting to feel lively again. But that also, to our point about basketball, means that the guys are coming back to campus. Practice is about to pick up relatively soon. What do you make of kind of this time of year and the excitement in the air surrounding basketball, even though we're, 2 months from the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's time. They're going to get back. They're going to get right back to the limited practice. You got players trickling in. He had some of the players coming in earlier in the week, like Darius Acuff Jr. Of course, Isaiah Seeley, who's a Springdale kid, he didn't have to travel far to get off campus and then get back on campus, right? So, unless he took some kind of vacation elsewhere, but I heard those two got back maybe sooner rather than later. And you're seeing other ones trickle in through the weekend. Again, school starts tomorrow. Arkansas, again, will get back to limited practice just briefly, and then that'll ramp up and they'll start to be able to expand that as they get into September. And then when you get into October, you're not only do you have ramped up practice, you're starting to get in your exhibition games, your exhibition
Mhm.
seasons, and then bam, next thing you know, it's November 3rd. It's your season opener at home against Southern out of the SWAC. All that stuff's coming, man. It doesn't, we haven't even kicked off football yet. Technically, we got to, we're still a couple of
Yeah.
weeks away, right, from the opening kickoff. But basketball, there's something going on every day, and now it just ramps back up, right? It's been kind of we've had recruiting news and stuff to talk about there. But now that the players are back on campus, we're going to be getting reports about what's going on
Mhm.
inside that building over there. We're going to start hearing about those two 7-footers. I hope there's those guys should be easy to spot on campus. Elmir Javich and Paulo Samito, they were not with the team in the June and July workouts, and then the team broke at July 16th for a little summer break. Now they're getting back. It's been about a month. So again, some of them in and out, some of them back a little sooner this past week. How about those two 7-footers? We need eyes on the ground. We need reports that those guys are spotted and on campus in Fayetteville.
I'll see what I can do when it comes to, people on campus, maybe taking some videos of them like walking around. Maybe it might not be
Yeah,
totally legal, but we'll see what we can do. And I am curious because when we talked to Cal last month, he said maybe we'll have an open, media session again in September. If we do have
yeah.
that, what are you most looking forward to hearing about from Cal outside of these two 7-footers who are coming to campus? What about the team kind of intrigues you and should intrigue everybody at home?
He said something recently on a podcast. I think it was John Rothstein. I've been talking about this. It's been kind of one of my talking points on my Hogville Net YouTube live segments this past week, where he said you really need to be a final weekend, Final Four championship caliber. We really need two top 10 players. Well, there's two ways to look at that. Two top 10 players in terms of the next NBA draft. You're talking lottery pick types, or are you talking about, all American caliber? Because a lot of your all Americans are older guys or veteran guys, are the best players on the best teams. They probably deserve you know, the moniker of one of the top players in the country. They may not be projected to the NBA even as a first round draft pick. So top 10 players can mean one or two things. But I think if you have a combination of a highly regarded guy that's draftable as a lottery guy and maybe an all American type, that would work too. But I want to ask him more about that, or I hope he speaks on that even more, because I'm trying to identify right now who I think might fit the bill for Arkansas. If we're going to talk about Arkansas with all the talent, all the retention, all the size, all the length, all the athleticism, yeah, the couple of question marks here and there, depth and shooting. Maybe this is a Final Four caliber team, but if Calipari's right about what that looks like, and you need two top 10 players, I want to hear him speak more on that. Even if he doesn't go down the road of identifying who on his team he thinks could fit that bill, I want to hear maybe him speak more on that, and maybe I'll even ask him about it if he doesn't bring it up.
Well, Cal might not, necessarily want to say who the guys are, but this podcast, Kevin. We can speculate who those guys are. To me, I feel like it's got to be Carter Knox and maybe a Malik Ewan or Nick Pringle. Someone big, someone lengthy can stretch the floor. Those two guys again. I think you can go up and down the list, and you'll be able to see guys. An easy answer could be Darius Acuff Jr. Depending on how he
Mm.
translates to the college game. So I'm curious, who do you think those two, All American players are going to be for the Razorbacks if they want to get to that national championship ceiling?
Yeah, I've already talked this past week a couple of candidates, Carter Knox, and I went into how and why. Darius Acuff Jr. I then went deeper with how and why. And then I've got one more to go, probably later today, if not in the morning. Trevor Brazil, he was the
Mm,
best player in the summer. Calipari said there wasn't a better big man than him coming down the stretch. Those last 9 or 10 games when Arkansas really turned things around or continued to pick up wins and pick up steam despite more attrition, losing players to injury. The two leading scorers gone. And so Brazil really stepped up. So he's kind of the next guy on the board. Malik Ewan, who you mentioned, that may not be far fetched. I mean, there may be one or two others. I mean, who's to prevent DJ Wagner from having some crazy breakout season I project a few others maybe ahead of him if we're talking All Americans or lottery picks.
Right.
But Arkansas's got some really good retention pieces, and they got players that they brought in that were highly regarded. And DJ will be a third-year college player. You never know when he maybe takes more than one or two more steps. You just don't know what that might look like.
I was just about to bring up, and that's a great point because you look at a guy like a Thero who entered his junior year, and everyone was kind of not sure if the jump would come, but they
Yeah,
thought it would. And then you see what he's able to do, takes the jump, obviously gets hurt, tanks his
yeah.
draft stock, still goes to LA. The Lakers trade up for him and whatnot. So I'd be curious if maybe that year 3 in the Cal system, year 2 at Arkansas, so more comfortability for DJ going from New
Yeah.
Jersey to Kentucky, now down here to Fayetteville could potentially help him moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. You never know. Some guys make that leap from freshman to sophomore. Sometimes it's year 2 to year 3. You mentioned Thero was a great example. And in Trevor Brazil's case, he'll be a fifth-year player.
Hmm.
It'll be his fourth season at Arkansas. And I got a feeling if he stays healthy, we're not only going to see the best of him, but it might be the most consistently high level play from him that we could have even imagined because we really didn't get a taste of consistent greatness from him. We've had wow plays, we've had big games, he's had injuries, he's had inconsistency. So even that 9 or 10 game stretch where he got pretty consistent, he's even stronger now. He looked completely locked in that 1 hour that the media got. Could year 5 at Trevor Brazil, it would be kind of reverse of how things work now. Could he be so good? Could he be that he's not only maybe an All American caliber, but maybe not only a first round projection, but maybe even flirting with, mid first round or even knocking on the door of lottery. It usually doesn't work that way with a guy aging and who's had an injury history, but you just never know. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying I don't take it off the table. You talk about making those leaps from one year to another. He's a guy too, I think, that we really got to pay attention to. How big could the leap be?
Yeah, absolutely. Could this be 2023 all over again where we're talking about Trev in high regards to centerpiece of the team and it kind of falls apart? Or could this be the new reality where Trevin Brazil takes that step and then he becomes, like an ado and gets drafted and all of these guys under Cal who goes and gets drafted? Let's wrap up shop here, Kevin. Let's talk a little bit pro
Yeah.
Hogs. Isaiah Joe back in Little Rock hosting another camp. He's been everywhere. Fort Smith up here in Northwest Arkansas and now in
Yeah.
Little Rock. You were there for his camp. What did you make of it? What was really interesting to you from that couple of hours?
It is a great camp. By the way, it was 2 parts. He had a youth camp in the morning that lasts about 4 or 5 hours, and they broke for an hour for lunch, and then came back with a shooters shoot elite camp where he partners with former Hog and pro Hog Daryl Macon, who's also played some NBA games and been playing overseas. He told me he'll be back in Greece for pro ball pretty soon, but he's not giving up on his dream of being back in the NBA. And look, that was a first team All SEC guy, a player who helped Arkansas get to back NCAA tournaments. 2 coaching staffs ago under Mike Anderson. So you had Isaiah Joe. We've talked so much about him. Just won an NBA title. Just had his best season as a pro. Really, just a great guy and one of the all-time great shooters at Arkansas. But so was Macon. And so you had 2 great shooters. What better to host a camp than the arguably 2 of the best shooters all time out of the program and out of the state because they're both in-state guys to host a shooters shoot elite camp. But I interviewed both of them. I put that out on my Twitter, my X account. So go check out those interviews. But we mentioned, Anthony Spratt Jr., class of 2028, just picked up that Calipari offer for Arkansas. But there are a lot of other top level players out of the state, guys like Jacob Lanier, top 100 rated 4-star. He won the overall best shooter in this camp on Saturday. And, he's won a couple of back-to-back MVPs at the prestigious Pangos All-American Camp. And you look at 2024, 2025, those are always June events. So here's a guy that, to me, that's underrated nationally. Just inside the top 100 in a couple of services. He is a 4-star. Jacob Lanier, 6'5" guard out of Little Rock Parkview. The list goes on. I mentioned that Justin Peppers, class of 3030 out of Whitehall. A lot of really good players, but it's great to see Isaiah Joe. Yeah, I was kidding around with he and Daryl Macon about the fact that they're so good at shooting. I'm like, don't take too many shots out here. You're going to get these guys depressed and not believing in themselves. We laughed about that, but seriously, the event's great. Isaiah brings in a lot of professional level trainers, some of the best folks that do it. Some of them local, some of them out of state, and then they just really drill down on the best ways to get in the shot, how to minimize your dribbles before getting into a shot. Working around screens, how to make how to maneuver around a defender, and then get to a better shot than maybe what you're used to doing with extra dribbles. All of these things, and they really drill down on it, and they just repetitive, and they move these stations around where you get a little bit of everything. And so it's not just a feel good, you get a t-shirt, come out and meet Isaiah Joe and Daryl Macon. Although they did that, they did a Q&A, took questions, signed autographs when it was all over. But just the work that they are actually doing in there, whether it was the elite camp guys or the youth camp, they put in some valuable stuff that those young players, whether they're elite or not, can take with them and build on as they continue to to grow their games.
Absolutely. Always fun seeing pro Hogs giving back to the community. Kevin, anything else before we wrap up?
That's just about it. I do have one more thing, and I don't. No one got this on video. Isaiah Joe and Daryl Macon saw it, but they urged me to take some 3-point shots, so I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
How did we do?
I took 4.
Okay.
Just random balls spraying over to the sideline where I was taking video, and it would come to me. They're like, "Shoot that." I went 2 for 4 from 3. That left corner
Okay.
3. That's
right.
50%. And as good as both of those guys are, I'm like, you guys are chasing me now. You're chasing me. You can't. That's a tough percentage. And Bacon looked at me when I said that. He just laughed. He goes, "Shut it down right now, Kevin." He goes, "Don't take another shot. Retire."
Kevin, that's Hall of Fame numbers right there.
Percentage. You're done.
Shooting 500. That I played a little freshman year basketball. I went like 1 of 7 from 3 and then got benched the rest of the season. It's like a defensive guy. They just put me in for defense. So you got it. That's pretty good. I think you should carry that a long way.
I should have been 3 of 4. I missed the first one. It wasn't bad. The second one I thought was going in. It just barely. It wasn't quite long enough. It hit the inside of the rim. It was straight.
Yeah.
Skipped off. The last 2 though, man, it was nothing but net.
That's
nothing but net.
Well, if anybody needs any advice on shooting, Kevin McPherson is your guy. That's going to do it for this week's Hogs Hoops Report. For Kevin McPherson, I'm Evan Kamiko. More Big Drill Show coming up after the break. Stick around.